Hey Top Centers, how's it going? Got a little news before we go on to today's episode, so I'll make it brief and then we'll actually get into some advice for beginner players. First bit of news is the fact that over in Japan we've been showing a few new promos. The first one I want to cover is Pitch's Pikachu, or as I like to just call it, Pitch Pikachu, just to make it easy to pronounce. This is a promo that's actually available to elementary school students over in Japan who attend a J-League soccer game in the last week of April. It comes with two variable arts, one where it looks like Pikachu's just headed the ball and the one where it looks like he's dribbling the ball. Pikachu itself has 70 hit points, is of course a basic Pokemon, weakness to fighting, resist metal, retreat cost of 1, and has the attack Pika Shoot, which for 2 lightning and a colorless does 100 damage, discard all energy attached to Pikachu. Now, as an actual Pokemon for playing, not that special, nothing too good about it, and I can't really go into much detail on that. But as a collector card, as like something interesting to have or something to actually take on for yourself, it's pretty interesting. The variant arts look interesting, and this is a good way of getting your Japanese school kids into actually doing something more physical than just playing the card game. It's a nice incentive for them to actually get out and play a bit of soccer. So, all in all, I like what they're actually going for with it, and I hope the promotion itself does actually see some kind of success, so this can become a more annual thing. The next promo card I'd like to cover is the pre-order promo for the Cocoon of Destruction and Diancie. It's a promotional Darkrai with 120 hit points, weakness to fighting, resist psychic, retreat cost of 1, and 2 attacks. The first attack is Hypnotic Wave, which does 30 damage for a dark and a colourless and puts your opponent's active Pokemon to sleep. The second attack, for 2 dark and a colourless, is Deep Wind. It does 60 damage. If a defending Pokemon is asleep, you do 120 damage. If a defending Pokemon is asleep, you do an additional 60 damage and heal 30 HP off a Darkrai. Personally, I see it being another one of those cards. It's not going to see a huge amount of play. Maybe somewhere down the line, possibly somebody might actually find a place for it, as happens with a couple of promos each year. So right now, nothing too big or important about it, but it's nice to actually see it coming out. We probably will get it in either a blister pack or throw it into a set somewhere. So it's something to keep an eye out for. And our last piece of news, the Pokemon Company International is actually holding auditions for the US, Nationals, and Worlds. Now, what would these auditions be for? They want professional sounding commentators. So, in other words, if you actually have a channel, maybe like this one, maybe a bit bigger, and you want to actually stand a chance of being there at Nationals or on the world stage and actually, getting your face out there and entertaining thousands of people, then this is a chance for you. What you have to do to stand a chance is email auditions@pokemon.com and place as your email subject commentary audition for, then your name, the main body of the email you want, your name, whether you're auditioning for the TCG or the video game, a link to your audition on YouTube, your Pokemon event experience, and any additional comments. I will put this detail down in the description so you guys can actually see it. But I'm liking what they're. But I'll be honest, I'm liking what the Pokemon Company are actually doing with this. It's only currently open to US candidates right now, so if you're like me in the UK and you want to audition so you can get a free flight out to Worlds, then it's not going to happen. That being said though, it is nice that they're actually turning around and saying, hey, you guys out there in the community have a chance to actually be a part of this. You might not be taking part in Worlds, but you can at least be a commentator, you can still be on the stage. And to be honest, it is a case of Last year, you know, we had some of the top cut up there, we had Jay Witts up there, and it was good to see those guys, but these guys are already very well established in the Pokemon community. It's not time to turn around to members of the community and actually say, hey, if you want to commentate and you're good at this, then go for it. Yeah, drop us a line. We want to actually see what you can do. If we like it, we might call you in for it. They haven't mentioned, I don't think they've mentioned how many people are actually going to be there, so I'm just skimming through. No, they haven't mentioned how many people are actually going to be brought in from the auditions. So it could just be 1 or 2, it could be up to a dozen, we really do not know. Because we don't know what extent they're going to do this at. Now, I'm pretty sure that members of the top cut, Jay Witts, probably will be back on the commentating scene. Especially, you know, I mean, I don't know if they have to go through the same thing. Well, I don't know if they have to go through the same auditions. For the sake of equality, I think they should do. They'll get in straight away, but I think that they should have to actually put an audition tape through, just for the sake of being fair to everyone else. I do have to stress though that this is an audition, it's not a competition. They could get thousands of entries for these auditions and none of them could be up to snuff. So it could be a case of commentators next year are just no good at what they do. So it could be a case of commentators next year could be people from the back offices, people who haven't played the game and don't have experience, and they don't really know what they're talking about. Much like the first year when they streamed World's Finals. I think everyone agrees that the commentators didn't really know what they were doing. They knew their marketing pitch, but they didn't know the metagame, because they were basically guys from the office, not professional players. The following year, which was last year, we got players from the top cut, we got Jay Witts down there, and it was much better because we actually had that experience behind it. Pokemon want to get more of us involved, and I say, you know, thumbs up, let's go for this. And if you guys over in the US, you know, give this a shot, you know, you might stand a chance, and if you don't actually make it to Worlds as a player, you might still be able to go as a commentator. So, you know, go for it, it could be fun. And now for today's main episode. Today I just want to offer a bit of advice to newer players or less experienced players. This isn't going to be me saying this is how you get good at the game, this is how you win, this is how you become a world champion. I'm not going to be saying any of that kind of stuff. One thing I do want to say though is I've been playing for a few years now and I've seen a lot of new players come in, and one thing that seems to come up quite a bit is, you know, after a few losses, a player will either start to think that their deck's rubbish or that they're rubbish, and that's mostly what this advice is about. It's the whole fact that when you're new into this game, when you have your first deck, if you're playing around and you find that you're losing game after game after game, don't turn around and think that you're rubbish at the game. Don't turn around and think that your deck is worthless. Step back for a second and actually look at why you might be losing. Are you not conserving your energy as well as you could? Are you running cards in your deck that just aren't doing anything? Game after game you top deck a certain card and it's useless to you. It's not that you're bad, it's not that your deck's bad, it's that you're inexperienced. You're new to the game. We were all there at one point. There aren't people who are just born and are naturally just Pokemon World Champions. Now, what I really want to say is though, the whole fact that never turn around, beat yourself up and say, well, I'm no good at this game, just because you've been in the game for a couple of months and you're still not winning. The biggest thing you can do for yourself is to actually look at why you're not winning and see if you can do anything about it. And don't be afraid to actually go around your league. Find the more experienced players. Go to your league leader who's probably got a few years' experience behind him and ask, what do you think's wrong? Is it ask them to take a look at your deck and see what if there's anything can be done with your deck to make it more consistent, or just take out cards that you don't really need. Just because you're new doesn't mean you're necessarily bad. It means that you just don't know things yet, you've not experienced. But on the note of taking advice from people, a lot of new players will get people turning around to them and saying, "Oh, well, that's rubbish. You want to be running like this deck or this deck." And it's like, no, we're throwing out all these meta deck names. It's like, oh no, you don't want to run that. You want to run Kelly Blastoise. You want to run Plasma. You want to run Genesect Virizion. You want to run Evital Boufflant. And whereas, yeah, those comments can be viable if you yourself as a new player want to be competitive, but if you're not a competitive player, then you don't really have a reason to be running tier 1 meta decks. If you're playing for fun and you want to run that deck, then go for it, yeah, because that's what you want to do. That's the reason you're running the tier 1 meta deck. That's the reason you're playing. You want to have fun. You're not playing because you want to be competitive. It's all about enjoying yourself. If you want to play a deck that's based around your favourite Pokemon because you think that's cool, you think it's fun, then go for it. You might not be world standard, but in my opinion, when you get to the point where you want to start playing competitively, you start to drop pretenses like, well, I want to be a world champion and run my guy. As soon as you start to become more competitive, you think, maybe I should step away from my guy and run something that's more competitive, because that's what competitive's about. But when you're just starting, a lot of players aren't going to want to be more competitive. So, if you want to run your fun deck, you want to run your favourite guy, then run your favourite guy. If these people are turning around and saying, well, you want to run this, you want to run that, you want to run the other, don't tell them to go away, because they are just trying to be helpful. They just don't know that you. It's just that they don't see that you just want to have fun. You want to run your guy. You want to make your guy as good as he can be, even if it isn't world standard. On a similar note to that, when you've got players actually saying, "Oh, you want to do this, you want to do that," and I'm not talking about decks. They're saying certain changes you want to make to your deck. I would pay attention to the more experienced players and go for ideas. I mean, especially if somebody's turning around and saying, "Oh well, you want to run less energy, more junipers, that kind of stuff." That's always good advice. If you want you want a compact energy line, you want more supporters. That's very generic and very good advice. If they're turning around and they say, well, you want to run this instead of this, and you're a bit iffy on it, I wouldn't instantly just ignore them. Yeah, give it a try. They might have a point. It might be that what they're suggesting suits their playstyle and not yours, but you won't know unless you try. If you try it out, it doesn't work, you can always swap it back. And yeah, if after you swap it back, if the person turns around and says, "Oh, why have you taken that out and put that back in?" you can just turn around and say, "Well, I tried yours and it just didn't suit me." It's better to actually try things out, or at least have reasoning behind why you've not taken a person's advice. Because if you actually have a good reason for turning around and saying, "Yeah, I listened to your advice but I didn't take it," instead of just ignoring their advice, that person will offer more advice in the future. They will be there for you. If somebody offers you advice and you're just like, "No, I'm not going to listen to you, I know better," that person, when you really need them, aren't going to offer the advice that helps you, because they know you're just going to ignore them. And you don't want that. You want as much help and as much advice as you can get. A lot of people are going to, a lot of people work that way. But I think the biggest point I can actually make is when it comes to actually, playing the game at a level, if you don't want to be competitive, don't let people push you into being competitive. And make sure to actually state that. If you want to just run your guy, or just want to run something that looks fun and interesting, then tell them it's like, I'm not here to be competitive. I might want to win a few games because you know, that's the aim of the game, is to win, is to get better. But I'm mostly here for fun. I want to actually play something that I enjoy playing. I want to play something that I think's interesting. Then yeah, don't be afraid to say that. Some people might, like, you know, turn their nose up at it, but it's like, well, they're playing for the wrong reasons then, aren't they? There's nothing wrong with you as a player wanting to play something for fun. Because it is a game. If you start taking a game incredibly seriously, then you need to actually take a good look at yourself and think, am I really in this game for the right reasons? So, in short, if you're a new player, don't be afraid to ask for advice, don't be afraid to test things, but don't let people push you into playing a deck you don't want to play. If you want to be competitive and people are saying run the competitive deck, then that is valid advice. That is them turning around and saying, well, you want to be competitive, this is competitive. If you're playing for fun, and they're saying, this is competitive, well, you don't want to be competitive, so it's not the advice you need. And make sure to explain that. Best thing you can do in that situation is explain. But don't be afraid to ask for people's advice. Ask league leaders, ask your league leader to look at your deck, see if there's any changes they could make or any tweaks. Because a league leader isn't somebody who'll just say, take this out, take that out. It's like, they'll actually say, well, you want this because. A league leader is probably the person who's going to turn around and give you the most reason for a change to your deck. And because they're giving you a reason as to why to change something in your deck, they open up a dialogue with you, they actually give you a chance to talk. Because if they, as soon as they turn around and say, you want this because there's the reason, you can turn around and say, oh well, I'm running this as it is now because. And you both learn the deck. Your league leader then can help you make changes to it, and when those changes are made, it's not just a case of, oh well, you take out this and put in this, and wow, it's a case of, wow, the numbers in your deck have changed. You've got less energy, more supporters, which, as I say, is good advice, but you don't know why you've got less energy and more supporters when somebody just says less of this and more of that. A league leader will explain the changes to you. And as I said, because they're explaining the changes to you, when you walk away with a changed deck, when your deck is actually altered, you'll know why. And you'll know how it's meant to work now. You'll know what those changes mean to the deck. So I think I'll sign off for now. Do you guys on Top Percentage have any advice for newer players? If so, pop them down in the comments so those guys can see, and hopefully we can make this a better game for everyone. Until next time, peace out.